p.m. in Kitsap County. It is time for the No Cap recap. I know it looks different. The Rev ain't on the screen with me, right? Well, normally we're sitting side by side, so I put him in the green room because he never gets to get an intro because we're already live and it's us together. So now I can actually give him the horn, I can give him applause, and I can bring him forward. So coming to the stage is Pastor Michael Ellington.
Let me cut it out. Let me cut it
How
out.
you like that?
Much love, much love. I appreciate the generous intro. I do, I do.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, normally we're together, so I can't bring you on. We're just already going. So, this way I can.
Yes, yes, very well done. I'm trying to find us online.
I see it. We're broadcasting well.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. See,
that's
when I'm in
good.
the home studio, I got all kinds of access to power tricks and things like that.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, I'm catching up. I'm catching up.
Well, why don't we jump right in and recap the sermon? I'm going to go ahead and put that on the screen here, and I'm going to go ahead and read it. We're looking at First Chronicles 29, 26 through 28. And let me go ahead and read that. David, son of Jesse, was king over all Israel. He ruled over Israel 40 years and 7 in Hebron and 33 in Jerusalem. He died at the good old age, having a long life, wealth, and honor. His son Solomon succeeded him as king. Is that correct, Rev?
Uh, I read 29, but yeah, that's correct.
All right, let me read 29 also. Just pull that up there. Let me make a quick adjustment. Verse 29. All the events of King David's reign, from the beginning to the end, are written in the record of Samuel the seer, the record of Nathan the prophet, and the record of Gad the seer.
Amen.
So, based on that reading, Rev, kind of recap your sermon for us.
So, the title of the sermon was "Get Ripe with God." RIPE. Get ripe with God. Um, a lot of our maybe some of our older viewers may remember the song "Get Right with God." Um, it's kind of a play on words, but so the sermon was pretty much talking about the cultivating process we go through in getting to various stages of ripeness with God. I feel like you know God is always trying to develop us into um, new and different areas so that we can be useful in the kingdom, doing the work of the kingdom, and to be able to do that work, we have to be developed. I mean, just like any other type of position, you have to kind of harness and develop your skills, and this is it's just pretty much talking about you know the way God develops our spiritual skills that we might be useful. And that's
Oh,
the short and skinny of it.
wow, it has been a while. I wasn't ready for the super redacted short version. I was ready for a soliloquy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
this
the short and skinny of it.
this was a good one, and I was saying at the end of the service that there were some parallels and some connections with last week's sermon, and taking notes has been a really powerful experience for me, because it helps me digest the message, and because I have to give some of it back and provide context, then that means it causes me to dig deeper, right? And then I'm able to actually use some of those things myself. And so what I'll do is I'm gonna take a little time and kind of unravel what I took from it, and then let's have the dialogue from there. Those of you that are joining us, this is the No Cap Recap. As you know, every Saturday after service with New Horizon Ministries, the preach word, the person who preached, because sometimes it's not Pastor Ellington, sometimes it might be Minister Hank or someone else, um, will summarize their sermon. And I come from the secular side. Although I am a believer, I come from the secular side, and the intent from my side of it is the Bible is a fantastic resource and can really help people on their way. The Revs from his side, he is saving the savage soul. Is that the terminology? Is that the quote?
uh, I didn't grow up in the church. So it may be, it may not be. I want to add one thing, if you don't mind, if you allow me,
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quickly. Um, this week's sermon, for those of you who have joined our 2x2 studies Facebook group, um, you'll know that a lot of the things that I talked about, I kind of gave away throughout the week, little different peeks into the sermon. And the last post that I posted was actually titled "Get Right with God." So I kind of gave away some more in-depth uh, peeks behind today's sermon. So if you go
So
back
you've been
and look
dropping
at the
Easter
post,
eggs.
I was all week, yeah, all week.
Oh man, it's like a Marvel movie.
I did do that, yes.
Well, we got folks checking in with us. Rob says, "Good afternoon. Good to see you, Rev." And Kendra says,
What's up,
"Glad to see
Rob?
you
Hey,
and
sis.
love you and Marwan." So shout out to them. All right.
Yes.
So as I was saying, the whole point of this is folks are struggling. It's hard. It's hard out here. And people are looking for direction and answers to questions that they have. How do I fix this in my life? How do I change the situation? How do I improve that? And we look all types of different places for that, whether it's friends, family, people we trust, mentors, education, the internet. We search all over the place. And the Bible is a fantastic resource to find the answers to those questions and to help guide you, not just give you the answer, but to propel you and go on your journey with you, so that you can have something to lean on that can bolster, the probability of your success, right? Not that it's going to make it that you're not going to have to go through it, because you're going to have to go through things, but how you go through it, you can control that. And the Bible is a perfect resource in my eyes for that, whether you're a believer or not. Now, from the Rev side is, hey, I'd love for you to become a believer. So that's his motivation. And so
Yeah,
I think we can meet in the
saving
middle there.
souls, bro. Yeah, it's
Save
all
the
about
souls.
yeah. I want to see
So
everybody in heaven. Go ahead.
hey. So based on that, see, I'm not all the way there yet, so I don't want to see everybody in heaven. There's some folks that if they don't make it, I'll be. See, that's so wrong, right? But I'm being real.
Amen. Amen. Keep it a
See,
hundred, bro.
what did it say? God's working on me.
Yeah, yeah. You're in that cultivating process, you know.
I'm not ripe yet.
Yeah,
I'm still
yeah.
on the vine. Please don't pick me yet, Lord. More time. I'm not ready yet. But what came to mind when you were talking about this was, I was thinking about, scenarios that people have, right? And I like to use education as an experience, because pretty much everyone gone through school, at least like grade school, if not college. And so I think about what happens when people have a paper that's due and you complete your assignments on time. You do your practice quizzes, you read your assignments, maybe you went to the computer lab and you did all this stuff. And for a lot of us, right, well, some people might be didactic, learn, right? Or they learn quickly.
Auto
And
it's autodidactic.
uh-huh. Well, I'm saying didactic because I don't know how auto it is, right? You still got to do some work. But you know, a lot of folks say, "Well, no, 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 I got it. You know, things come quickly to me, and you've done everything, and it's time for you to submit it." And something happens. You get sick, right? Maybe you got COVID. Maybe you got called into work, or you had some of the kind of emergency, and now you weren't able to turn that assignment in. And so, what I was taking from that, the Rev was talking about ripening, right? And that it takes time to cultivate, whether it's a relationship with God, whether it's you're trying to change something in your life, you're trying to fix something, you're trying to do something new, that these things take time. And we have all of these different sayings, right? Like a watch pot never boils. You know, I think I wrote quite a few of them down, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it. It's worth the wait. You appreciate it more if you earn it. We have all these different sayings that people will use, but it does take time, right? But we don't typically act like that when it comes to it. So then all of a sudden, this crisis happens, something happens, you don't get it in on time, you get a bad grade, you fail, whatever the consequence is. And so that time frame is sometimes you have to go through things. This is something that you were saying, Rev. You have to go through things so you have that experience, you have that lived experience. And based on that lived experience, you now have these knowledge, skills, and abilities that you can apply to the next time you find yourself in that situation or similar situations. My hope is always that people will use their skills transferably for whatever that might be. I tell a quick story and then I want to get your feedback on there. And one example that I can give is when I was teaching at OC, there was a program that was being run for non-traditional students. And the school was getting millions of dollars for this program. It was a grant. And so it was time to rewrite the grant program. Now, because this is statewide, right? All the schools are competing for it. So there is no, hey, so sorry, something happened, it got submitted late. If it's submitted late, there you're done, right? So think about it. This is Olympic College, right? This is the only college in the area outside of the online satellites and things like that and on base, right? It's the only college. So they apply for it, right? They get all their ducks in a row, they complete the grant, they do all their work, all the check marks. It takes months to do this. And from the way I understood it was the grant was finished and the person that was supposed to submit it ended up in the hospital. So it literally sat on a desk and was not submitted. The college lost that grant and they had to close that department, which was a super important department at Olympic College, right? And all because they did everything right. They had all their work done, but they had it where this one person had to submit it, and because they were gone, it was done, and there was no one else to do anything. There was no backup, no redundancy, so that opportunity wasn't missed. They called the grant writers or the people that were providing the grant, either the state or feds or whoever it was, and they said, "Sorry, these are the rules. You didn't get it in. Doesn't matter if you got it in. We understand the circumstances were outside of your control. We can't accept it." And so this really hit me today on that. Give me your thoughts. I said a lot there, Rev.
You know, I kind of get that, and I thank God, like I was saying today, I'm extremely thankful for everybody that's been stepping up, while I've been out, but for so long, you know, um, that was me. It was like it was all down to me. You know what I'm saying? And there, I didn't feel like I had those redundancies or the backups, or what I'm saying, that network that God just kind of dumped into my lap like boom. you know. Um, but I get it also. Sometimes you know um things I believe everything God allows to happen for a reason. What I'm saying. And if sometimes things happen to teach us these lessons. And in this story that you're given, perhaps the lesson is let's not be so dependent on just one what I'm saying, individual to ensure that everything's done. you know um we have to sometimes relinquish control, where we're always just such a micromanager, like, oh, I'm the only one that can do it. And anybody that comes to New Horizon, they know I'm not that person. I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna give you the reins, and if you got an idea, let's run with it. And saying, as long as it's something to you know, um, you know, be spiritually encouraging and uplifting. I'm all for it. So yeah, I get that.
One thing that also popped into my mind is we have a saying that says, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I watch this in other people's lives, and I watch it in my life too, where I know what the result is going to be if I behave in a certain way or if I do certain actions, and then I do it again and I expect for it to be different, right? Um, and so when I'm having the conversations with folks and they're struggling, they're working on something, maybe, and I'll keep it on, learning, right? So you're struggling with math, right? And it's like, okay, so you're struggling, you're having a hard time understanding the instructor, you're having a hard time, reading on your own and comprehending. Like sometimes when you're sitting in front of the instructor, you get it, right? You're connected. It's like, yeah, I'm following everything. But when I get home and I do my homework, I'm not getting it. It's like it's gone. The connection is gone. What do I do? And so, you kind of do the same thing and you take the next test and then you get the same result. And so I'll ask the question, well, what did you do differently this time? Did you go to the tutoring center? Did you change how you took your notes? Or were there office hours for the instructor? Right? And if you do the same thing, you're going to end up likely getting the same result. And it's going to make your situation and your scenario a lot more difficult for you. One thing I'll say, and this is my own little quick rabbit hole. As we are going toward automation and AI, what jobs are going to be there for you? Because we're going to see them fall away more and more and more. I submit to you, math is incredibly important. So whether you're doing programming or some of these other things in the STEM field, that place, that area of expertise is going to be a way for you to try to future proof your potential earnings in the future. So I want you to consider that for those of you that just don't love math, don't love science, find a way to connect with it because it's going to be critically important going forward. Go ahead, Rev.
So going back to the old saying, the definition of society insanity is trying to, doing the same thing expecting a different result. Like that there is so true. And that I think that really speaks to today's message, because even for myself, like we've all heard that saying before, but
Mhm.
internalizing it, what I'm saying, is a different thing. And I'm at a point, today in my life where I'm beginning to internalize that and really understand that, what I'm saying, and it's bringing me to some different places in life. The thing is, and this is what I was talking about in the message, um none of us are perfect. We're going to go through some different, trials and tribulations, some different issues, some painful spots in our lives, you know. Um, and the thing is, when we're in these spots and these places, what I'm saying, it's important to try as hard as possible. And I know sometimes it's very difficult, when you're in the middle of the storm, to kind of remove yourself from that situation and really kind of have a bird's eye view of what's going on. But as much as possible, try and do that and really examine and look at what's happening, because it's usually a teachable moment. I'm saying, when we're going through things, it's usually a teachable moment, for us to learn something and grow and learn to, all right, let me do it a little bit differently, and make those adjustments in life. And this is what I was talking about, when I was referencing King Saul, that he was, kind of hard headed, you know, and there's this teachable moment that's going on in his life. And instead of him humbling himself, repenting, asking God for forgiveness, he marches, forward in the battle, with a handful of guys against a whole army, and only him and his son has weapons. So you got like 600 guys. Like, this is insane. What are you thinking, dude? But if you'd have removed yourself from the situation a little bit, kind of looked at like, yeah, maybe it's time to retreat, what I'm saying? Tuck tail, run, and live to fight another day. Let me ask God for forgiveness. I messed up. I did something wrong. What I'm saying? Let me, what I'm saying, repent and revisit this, and we, and this is teachable spiritually and just secularly living. you know we have to, what I'm saying, learn, from situations. And a lot of times, it's retro, active, that we're learning from these situations. But it can behoove us, if we're able to, again, if we're able to really, what I'm saying, try and remove ourselves at the moment and look at the bigger picture and see what's trying to be taught to us. Sometimes retroactive learning can be a little bit too late, and we find ourselves, um yeah, in a bad situation. So
Measure twice, cut once.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And,
Wow, I was
what that means, Rev, is what you're talking about with retro learning is you go through it your way, right? And then you realize I got to go back and learn it the right way or a different way. And now it's going to take longer and it's going to be harder because sometimes not only are you trying to learn the right way, but you're trying to unlearn the wrong way that you learned it to get it going in the first place.
and sometimes, with that retroactive learning as well, um,
Oh,
you know,
AJ's got a question there. He got his hand up.
okay, one second, let me make this
Yeah, go
point.
ahead.
Sometimes with that retroactive learning, we find ourselves in a place where, um, you know, it's a situation that may have happened 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, and now we're finally just kind of thinking on it, and, saying, learning from it. That retroactive learning process isn't always immediate, like, okay, the situations are over, let me re-examine and learn. Sometimes, it could take us a long time. And so that's why I say, as much as possible, while you're in the midst of a situation, try and, saying, like, look, remove yourself and get that bird's eye view and look at things from the top. Because, yeah, it may be too late to fix a current situation, and, you may, learn for a future situation. But yeah, so.
All right, brother AJ, go ahead and type your question in the chat or your comment. Now, a good part that I loved in the sermon today, you talked about selfish ambition, and you were talking about, taking the 600 soldiers with no weapons.
Yeah.
And I'm put the definition of ambition in the chat for you because I think that's important. Oh, he
Oh,
was just saying hi.
yes.
Okay.
Hey, brother AJ. Yeah, please do put the definition of ambition in the chat. And I would like to read something uh about ambition, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And we can find this in Proverbs 29. Yes. No, 30. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 7, 8, and 9. I love this verse. It's been a favorite of mine for years. And one thing I love about the Bible, like, it constantly just keeps speaking to you, and you just, like, it's a unending well of just goodness. But anyway, so as far as ambition go, like, just here lately, like, this verse just took on a whole new meaning about ambition. But anyway, uh, Proverbs chapter 30, verse 7, 8, and 9 says, "O God, I beg two favors from you. Let me have them before I die. First, help me never tell a lie. Second, give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough to satisfy my needs. For if I grow rich, I may deny you and say, who is the Lord? And if I'm too poor, I may steal and thus insults God's holy name. You know, so for me, you know, it's all about contentment. You know what I'm saying? Learning to be content. And it's, like people are all about this, oh, let me, this ambition and like, oh, I gotta be this go-getter, I gotta chase the bag, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Like you ain't even learned to be content with life yet, you know what I'm saying? And you constantly trying to, reach and grab, stuff that you'll never own. You'll never, own it. That's a whole nother sermon. But
Or if you get it, you won't be happy. A lot of folks is
yeah,
chasing things that they think are going to make them happy or fix their situation. And when they get it, they're like, I still feel the same. It didn't change.
I'd rather be content than ambitious. That's all I was saying. Like I love that scripture. Like, look, just give me enough, to make it day to day, and I'm good. Like, not to say that I don't have desires for great things, but the ambition. That's yeah. Put the definition up again. Let people read that to people. Read to people the definition of ambition.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up. So, ambition, a strong desire to do or to achieve something, typically requiring determination and hard work. Her ambition was to become a pilot. He achieved his ambition of making a fortune. Now, what I think is important is often ambition, and this is what you're talking about with the selfish ambition, goes with hubris. And so this is what I took from, your word today. Definition of hubris, I'm going to go ahead and put that on the screen here, is excessive pride or self-confidence. The self-assured hubris among economics was shaken in the late 1980s. You can say that for the 2008 when the housing market burst, right? And that selfish ambition or that hubris, oh, I'm not worried about it. I'll do it different next time. And then it comes back the next time and you fall into those same patterns, right? You didn't go tutoring lab. You didn't find a different way to engage with the instructor. You didn't see if they had drop-in hours. You didn't work through your problems more than once, right? You didn't do, I don't know how it is in school now. It's like do all the odd problems for your homework. You didn't do the even problems, right? So it's up to you to reinforce your learning and to do something different. But we could talk about this in a lot of different ways. I love what I do. I was telling the person that was working on me yesterday, that she was massaging me, and I guess there's some energy transference that can happen in there. So when she's massaging my pain out and trying to get whatever's going on, sometimes she could take on the negativity that she's rubbing out, right? And then she's got to purge that. And she says, you don't have any. And I said, well, the reason why I believe that may be the case is I'm living my purpose. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm actually doing it. And so, in that, like you said, I'm ambitious in a positive way. Like I want to try new things. I want to get better for the sake of G2 and do things like that. But my purpose isn't a selfish ambition. I'm not doing it for my own edification and my own glorification, right? I really am trying to help people. And so I think that's what she was feeling. And so that was great. But there are days, right? This work is not easy. It's thankless, it's hard, it's 24/7, 365 days a week. We're
you know what I'm gonna
transporting
say about
people.
that.
Yeah, we're transporting people to the severe weather shelter. We get an emergency call. You got to get to the airport. We got folks going to dialysis. I can't move. Stuff has to happen. We got a van that's down because we're trying a new pilot program and that's not going the way it's supposed to. So all these things are all happening. And that's enough to get you to be like, but you can't lose sight of what is the purpose. And if you're living your purpose, then there should be a joy and a peace. Now, the thing is if you keep finding yourself, why is that? And what are you doing different so that you're not getting a different outcome, right? Because sometimes we're so busy trying to get it done, we end up falling to that definition. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? So maybe we have to get ourselves psyched up in our mind in the morning. Lord, thank you so much. That's why prayer is so important, right?
Mhm.
Thank you for waking me up today. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my health. Thank you for this. Whatever you're thankful for, even if you're struggling, right? What do you have? And even if you're not praying to God, I had folks do a gratification bowl, right? What do you have? I have a roof. I have heat. I have food. I have people that are caring about me. I have an organization that's providing a resource to me, right? I have today. I have hopefully tomorrow, right? I have hope still. I have, you know what I mean? I have my mind. There's so many things. So even when you're going through a breakup or you're going through something that you're struggling with, you can't pay your rent, you're behind, they're trying to evict you, there are still things that you have to be grateful for and acknowledge that and say, "Hey, I could stay in the problem, but I'm going to focus on the solution. What's the solution, and how am I going to think myself and out of this situation? How am I going to do it differently when I was in here? And I know that I've gone through trials and tribulations in the past. How did I get through that? And how can I use that experience to get through this one and not go through it where I'm just kicking and screaming and it's just a horrible experience?" Go ahead, Rev.
So, so one of the parts of what I was saying in this sermon is, you know, that the cultivating process, this refinement process to get us from, this seedling or this budding piece of fruit that's not ripe to being ripe is that often it can be painful. You know what I'm saying? It can be troubling. You're gonna experience some difficulties in life. That's a given, right? I don't care who you is, believer or non-believer. We're gonna face some issues in life. It's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be painful. You know what I'm saying? And I related it back to the pruning process that God talks about in John 15:2. Um, but the key is to remain humble and not resist the process. I
Mm,
think we get too caught up in trying to resist the process and fighting back against what I'm saying, what's happening. What I'm saying. And not focus, and again removing ourselves, what I'm saying, and taking that bird's eye look and saying like, okay, what can I get out of this, what can I learn, say how can I grow, and just all of the positive out of it. We're too busy fighting against the storm. The storm's happening, it's gonna happen. What I'm saying, you can't beat down the wind, it's not gonna happen, that's not gonna happen. you know um I made a post about a week or so ago, and I said, listen, it's all about perspective. Is it happening to me, or is it happening for me? You know what I'm saying? Now, if I look at this storm as happening as something that's happening to me, I'm taking on this negative aspect, and oh, woe is me, and why me, and everything else. Or I could take this positive aspect and say, okay, this storm is happening for me, because there's some good things that happens during the storm. The area gets, what I'm saying, revitalized and fresh, and things get moved around and stuff. The storm's gonna happen, but we have to adjust our perspective in life on how we're gonna, what I'm saying, perceive the world, and stop, with this woe is me, oh, look at what's happening to me, and start saying, look at what's happening for me. This storm, what I'm saying, cleared a new path, that was previously blocked. What I'm saying? Now, I may not have never even considered taking that path because there was so much rubbish in the way. But now, what I'm saying, it's all moved out of the way. I can see things differently. The sun's shining so much brighter all of a sudden because the storm is past. So stop trying to resist it. Humble yourself, what I'm saying, and understand that, like our model for this year, Jeremiah 29:11, God knows the plans that he has for us. Everything's going according to plan. May not necessarily be your plan, but it's God's plan. And if we trust in his plan, what I'm saying, trust in him and trust in his plan, we know that all things work to the good of those who love him. What I'm saying? So stop fighting against the storm. Humble yourself. Stop trying to resist it. I say all that to say I talk a lot.
Rev, but folks will say, hey, I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to do this. Man,
Perspective.
if I had done this earlier, I wouldn't have to go through this now. If things were different, man, if this situation wasn't how it was, I wouldn't even be having to go through this right now. So I want people to not get caught up in that. Again, to me, that's being caught up in the problem, right? And not being caught up in the solution. What's happened has happened. Yes, I wish I had stayed in school when I was in the ninth grade. Oh, yeah, I wish I hadn't have made that decision back then. But the decisions were made, everything is done. All I can do is go forward from here. But how I go forward, I have absolute control over because I have control over my attitude and what I'm going to take from it. And that's why I say, I love how you brought that up because that's why the saying, I don't lose, I win or I learn. I learn, I don't lose because it's an opportunity for me to, hey, was I supposed to get something from this situation? What was it that I was supposed to get? I'm going through something right now and it's unfortunate and it may cause an issue with a relationship. But there's something that is on my horizon that I'm going to be going and trying to do. And it's like, well, if you can't overcome that, how do you expect to be successful or effective in this endeavor? So, this is probably a test to get you ready. So, I could be upset about it and complain about it. But if I just stay there and just say, man, it shouldn't be this way. Why do these people think this way? Why do they do that? This is why I don't work with folks. You know what I'm saying? You could do that. You could say all those things, but how is that going to help you? How's
Yeah.
that going to help you?
Yeah.
Right? So there's a skill there that you need to obtain. There's a deficit that you need to work on or to go pull in your tool belt and say, hey, well, how did you deal with that last time you had an issue with this person or this scenario? How did you navigate it? What can you bring to bear from that situation to apply here to help you through that? Was it managing your emotions, exercising emotional intelligence, sitting back, getting a mediator, letting it go, right? Are you someone that's hyper competitive and you feel like you have to win? Do you need to win this? Is it that important to you or is it more important to the other person? There's all these things that you can ask. You say, okay, I'm just going to step back for a second. I can take a breath, take a beat, analyze it, and then go ahead and use those things. Go ahead, Red.
Uh, I want to kind of go back
Go
to
ahead.
one of the first things you said in that diatribe there. That the part about if I would have it could have been this and that. That all goes back again, like, oh, I shouldn't have to be going through this. If I would have did this would have happened, and this would have happened, or whatever else. You know, that all goes back to us assuming, saying that we know the future. Even in hindsight, we assume that we know how things are gonna play out. Like, oh, if I would have went right, I wouldn't have crashed. Yeah, you probably still would have crashed. You know what I'm saying? The thing is, it all relates back again to trusting God and trusting his plan and understanding that he has a plan for you. Oh, if I would have invested, $100, in Amazon back in the 90s, I'd be a billionaire, or a millionaire, whatever, right? Well, guess what? It didn't happen, and it probably didn't happen because you wouldn't have been able to handle all of that money, and you would have ended up killing yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'd end up, doing some crazy stuff that you had not, ought not, should not do. So we look over our lives and say, well, if this would have happened, that would have happened. We assume that. We assume that if A would have happened, B would have happened, but it didn't happen, and it probably wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? So it's more advantageous for us to just stay focused in what we actually have control over, which is not tomorrow, definitely not yesterday, but the here and now. Let me
Well, let's
deal with it right now.
let's raise the stakes, right? Because you said if I had been a millionaire, let's raise the stakes, right? Those of us that engage in relationship with others, right? We tend to have folks will say, I got a bad picker, right? So you done picked, he turned you on, so you picked him, but he was horrible for you. And it was a very bad experience. Or she was horrible for you and it was a very bad experience. and that has caused some setbacks in your life. And or maybe you ended up having a child with this person, and now this person is tied to you, and you were struggling trying to co-parent, if that's even a thing. So kind of talk about it from that frame of mind, because folks are going through some pretty hard things. I think that's little more tangible than, hey, if I had won $1 million.
Definitely, but again, it still goes back to, you know, trusting God's plan for your life. You know what I'm saying? Like I was saying earlier, we're gonna go through some situations. Okay, maybe you've been in some bad relationships, you know what I'm saying, and you've experienced some horrible things, you know what I'm saying, through life because of those bad relationships. What you have to understand, and what again, perspective. It's all about perspective. What you have to understand is, you know what I'm saying, those experiences, whether you count them as positive or negative experiences, those shape you into who you are today, right? And this is what I was talking about in the sermon. You know what I'm saying, those experiences that we go through in life, you know what I'm saying, they develop, or they're meant to develop in us, certain characteristics that God can now use to put us to work, to be helpful to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, and I really loved what Minister Shepherd said at the end of the service. We come to worship, but we leave to serve. I love that. I'm still in that. That's mine now. I own that one. But we go through these situations, and we go through these experiences in life, so as all part of the ripening process, so that what I'm saying, we can be used, what I'm saying, to help somebody else. Now, what I'm saying, would I have, what I'm saying, chosen to go through an abusive relationship where I'm getting my head beat in almost every other night by some alcoholic maniac, what I'm saying, that really didn't care about me? No, I wouldn't choose to go through that. But what I'm saying, that has given, what I'm saying, perspective. That's given me a strength, what I'm saying, that now I can, what I'm saying, coach and encourage somebody else, what I'm saying, through that situation, and possibly even save a life, what I'm saying, because we know a lot of time these violent relationships end up in death, what I'm saying, possibly even save a life, what I'm saying. And so,
Well,
you know,
let me add, Rev, because I don't want them to project it onto someone else. I'll just say yes, they can do that, but and that's how often people tend to cope, right? It's like, hey, I'm going through this, right? I was in an abusive relationship, or I'm in one, so I can tell other people not to do that. When they themselves find themselves picking that same person, and they go from one abusive relationship to the next, or they never sever the relationship that they're currently in, right? And so I think a lot of people do that disassociation in order to kind of cope. So, I want to keep it focused on them.
so that problem there is, what I'm saying, again, it's a happening to me, not for me, aspect. And even though they may try and act like it's happening for me, oh, I'm going through this so that I can, as long as you remain and you continue to remain or repeat the same behavior, it's insanity. You know what I'm saying? You truly haven't learned, what I'm saying, what needs to be learned, so that you can be useful, what I'm saying, in helping the next. So if you're constantly in the situation, or constantly going through the situation, what I'm saying, you got to sit back and really ask yourself, have I ripened in this situation? You know what I'm saying? Have I developed, what I'm saying, the necessary characteristic attributes and skills and tools, what I'm saying, to move forward, what I'm saying, into the next situation of my life? Or am I constantly doomed to keep repeating it because I haven't learned? You know what I'm saying? So you can lie to yourself as long as you want to, but the reality of the situation is what it is. Until you get to a point where you're saying, listen, I'm no longer, what I'm saying, willing to to accept, what I'm saying, this negative behavior in my life. And again, it's not about resistance, but humbling yourself and accepting, what I'm saying, the process of cultivating that God's sending you through, and learning what needs to be learned, you know.
Drop the mic, Rev. You titled this sermon "Get Ripe with God," and ripe is a verb. It's an action word, right? And that means that you have to do work. You have to ripen. So you have to tend to the garden that is your life, right? You don't
Amen.
just get to, you know,
Do not step on my sermon because you know what? I wanted to talk, touch on that part as well as, the part about, saying, us being active in that cultivating process of
Mhm.
becoming right. But, we try to keep it at an hour and a half. So I was like, I'm being mindful. And again, I'm doing it virtually. So I didn't know how far I could take it or whatever. But that is right in line with what God was giving me for this sermon. So go ahead and you talk about it, Rev.
Well, and what's powerful about that is, one, I'm paying attention. Two, that I'm getting something out of it, right? That what you intended through God is being delivered, right? At least to
Amen.
me, and hopefully
Amen.
to others, right?
Amen.
So, and that's how I get jazzed too when the light bulb goes off. But it is an action word. It's a verb. You have to tend. So maybe God has something for you, but you need to be careful with that. Folks can be too literal and they say, "Well, God got something for me, so I guess I got to go through this," and I'm going through it. And it's like, yes, you're going through it, but you're also ripening. It's a verb, right? How are you going through it? Is it just happening to you, or are you going to control how you experience going through that scenario and that situation? That's what's important, and that's where your power is, and people don't tap into the power that they have.
O ye of little faith. This is what Jesus told his disciples when they was going through the midst of the storm. He's like, "Oh ye of little faith." He's like, listen, what I'm saying? I'm sitting up here resting, I'm sleeping, what I'm saying? You coming and bothering me, what I'm saying? Like, why are you messing with me? I'm up here getting some well needed rest, what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, little faith. Yeah, you going through the storm, but that don't mean that, what I'm saying, you just like hold on for dear life and wherever it blows me, no. The same way Jesus got up and this is what Jesus is trying to teach us. This same way I just got up and spoke to this storm, you could have did the same daggone thing. If you had been paying attention all this time I've been teaching y'all this. Like, why are you bothering me? Why didn't you just tell this storm to just, pipe down and let me finish resting? And that's
Yeah.
the whole thing. Like, yeah, getting active, in your storm. Listen, don't fight against it. And that's our natural instinct, our natural base instinct is, okay, I'm going to fight against this, or either I'm just going to hunker down and, what I'm saying, cover up and wait till it's over. God is like, no, what I'm saying, get active in, what I'm saying, the midst of the situation. And that's probably part of what I was saying about, listen, you're going through, what I'm saying, as much as possible, try and remove yourself from the situation, get a bird's eye look at what's really going on. And what I'm saying, like, yeah, don't yeah. Oh ye of little faith. As soon as you said that, that's exactly what it brought into my mind. Like, oh ye
That's
of
what
little
kicked in.
faith. Like come on, man. Like, what are you doing?
So
Why you messing with me?
I'm gonna give you two things that I think that can help folks, right? Whether it's spiritually or just trying to move through the world. Attitude versus aptitude, right?
Mm,
Your ability to do something versus your attitude of how you go about doing that task, right? You may not have all the answers right now, but you can choose how you go through trying to get those answers. Sitting in the classroom, I tell students, "Hey, we got a 5-page paper due." Oh my, you hear the groans, right? That's their attitude, right? The attitude is negative. The aptitude is, I don't know what I need to do with this assignment. I don't know what the rubric is, how I'm going to be graded. I don't know any of that. I may not have the requisite skills. I haven't been a great student, but my attitude can be positive. And that's how you'll see where you have folks that naturally achieve high. And if they don't achieve high, it's devastating, right? Just really bad attitude because their aptitude was so high. And so when they fall short, it's an issue. Or you have someone that actually did the best they could, great attitude, right? But their aptitude was, hey, I got to see, but I gave the best. I know I put it all on the line, and that was the best that I can do, right? And
I,
I would
I
rather be
let me
that
let me
person.
jump in. hold on, let me
Yeah, go
jump in
ahead.
real
Yeah,
quick,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's what I teach my kids. I've been telling them for forever. Listen, I don't care what grades you bring home, as long as you can honestly look at yourself and look yourself in the mirror and say, "Listen, I did my best." Whatever that grade may be, as long as you give your best, I'm okay with it. You know, like yeah, because we're not all gonna achieve and excel at everything, but we can all give 100% at everything. And whatever the outcome is, be okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Because I am. I'm not putting no pressure on you. Oh, you got to bring all A's home. No, I'm not finna do that to you. And don't do it to yourself either. But go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
facts, facts. No, no, it's good. That's good. Another one is needs versus wants. That's another one that's really important. And a lot of times, and I'll go back to the one with the relationship, right? We want men are very visual, so we like what we see, and so we will chase that, but that's not what we need. Women are the same, also, right? They're also very visual. Uh, but that may not be what you need. So if you're in a relationship that is not positive, it's abusive of those things, and it's not what you need, or you're looking at getting into a new relationship, you're dating with intention, which I hope you're doing, um, and you're looking that you're not falling into the same tropes and those same things that got you caught up the last time, and you're saying, what do I actually need for me to be in a healthy relationship that is going to be someone that's going to be equally yoked with me, that's going to add value to my life, right? And if you do that, they're probably not going to be the best looking, right? They're probably not going to have they probably won't have a bag like you hope they do, or whatever the case may be. But that person that is going to give you that peace, that inspiration, that support, that person that's going to be value added to your life. There's a saying like, what do you bring to the table? You should be able to define that. What do you bring to the table, and what do you need brought to your table? And beyond, for men, because a lot of times stereotypically it's sex, right? Oh, well, we're looking for sex. Or for a woman, it's, well, I want financial stability, right? There's got to be so much more in that. And you need to look at that, because otherwise you just keep picking the same thing, and 10 years have gone by and you're wondering why, hey, there's no good men out here. There's no good women out here. And there are, but you're looking for the wrong things. So, I just want to add those two things: attitude versus aptitude, needs versus wants. Go ahead, Rev.
So I want to touch on the needs versus want. This is something I want to encourage people with, and this is new terminology that I learned maybe a year or two ago, is FOMO, right? Fear of
Mm-hmm.
missing out, right? The problem is with the needs versus wants, um and I'll use your example of relationships, right? you know uh at during the moment of, what I'm saying, we can tend to lose perspective and get caught up in the FOMO, and that causes us to repeat, what I'm saying, the cycle of insanity, because we have this FOMO. Oh, I'm afraid of missing out, so I'm just gonna, go for the sure thing, what I know I can get, or whatever else, instead of trusting God. What I'm saying, putting, what I'm saying, our hope and our faith and everything in His hands, and trust in Him. What I'm saying, we get caught up in this FOMO, that I'm gonna miss out, and so most people end up repeating, what I'm saying, the same, what I'm saying, things that were not. And this is the all of what I was talking about, that learning process. What I'm saying, because you're repeating, the same behavior. Now, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's finances, whether it's, what I'm saying, educational, whatever area it is in your life, we have to learn to truly trust God for it. And, what I'm saying, depend on His wisdom and His understanding, and not lean on our own, like Proverbs 3 says. And trust Him, and trust His plan for us, and say, okay, well, maybe I need to develop, what I'm saying, a little bit of patience, what I'm saying, and
Mm-hmm.
not get ahead of myself and make this sacrifice like King Saul did, when if I'd have just waited, what I'm saying, one more day, you know what I'm saying, or a few more hours, Samuel would have been there. Maybe I need to, what I'm saying, develop, faithfulness and learn to be committed, what I'm saying, to what it is God has already given me, what I'm saying, instead of always looking, what I'm saying, on the other side of the fence thinking the grass is greener. What I'm saying, maybe I need to learn this self-control. And I'm talking to different anybody that's paying attention, these are different aspects of the fruit of the spirit. But we have to, what I'm saying, be cognitive of our situation, what I'm saying, past and current, so that we don't develop FOMO for the future. If that makes sense to everybody, I'm gonna leave it there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So some of the things that you can do: make a list, set goals, journal, and check in on your goals.
Man, do not talk about that piece of paper on the floor. I'm gonna tell you
No,
that
I'm
right
not. I'm not going there with
now.
it. I'm not going there with it. I'm not going there with it. But a lot of times, people will want to make a change, and they're the way they go about that action is thoughts. I know I want to change the situation, so the next time I get into that situation or when I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to think differently. And what happens is you get busy and you're not thinking about it, right? Make a list. Set goals. What is it that you want to work on? Is it an attitude thing that you need to adjust, right? Is it accessing what you're making a list on what your needs versus your wants are and saying, hey, what do I actually need in a partner, in a relationship, right? Do I need her to be a 10, an IG model? Or do I need someone that's going to bring peace, someone that I can eventually have around my daughter? Because I can't have any woman around my daughter, right? Is it someone that's going to help me in my goals in my relationship with God or with G2 or those things? Like those are the things that I need. So no longer is it, oh man, she look good. Oh man, she's this, she's that. I'm looking for something different. What are you looking for? Right? What do you need from a man? Let's say, do you need, stability, someone who is wise, someone, you're not hearing me talk about anything about money, right? Someone who has your best interest, someone who is stable in mind. Those things are important. There's a whole list, but you really need to look at that. And then when you're out there and you're dating for intention, whether you're swiping right or meeting someone in the grocery store or at church or wherever you interact with someone, those are the things that you're looking for. That is your vetting process, not what your eyes see, because your eyes fool you all the time, right? The cake looks good. That's why we eat the cake, but we should have had the apple. And when you think about it, they both are sweet, but one's bad and one's good for you. So eat the apple. Now, if you can make the apple look like a cake, you probably would pick the apple all the time because it looks like a slice of cake. You know what I'm saying? Just saying.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about when I was giving my analogy about, me grilling, what I'm saying, and you put that piece of meat on the grill and it started to, what I'm saying, get seared and crisp and the outside just look like, yeah, it's ready, and you rush into it and, it's still not ripe. It's not ready. It's not done cooking, so it's still raw on the inside, it hasn't had time to ripen. We have to, what I'm saying, learn to look deeper, what I'm saying, and probe and examine deeper than just this surface out of artificial, what I'm saying, not artificial, the surface, what I'm saying, things that just appear to be, what I'm saying, good when, yeah, it's not done ripening, so you gotta go through the process, let it go through the process, what I'm saying, of ripening, what I'm saying, and again, that's no matter what area we're talking about in our lives, what I'm saying, and again, that all boils down to us trusting, what I'm saying, God's plan for our lives, what I'm saying, and as far as like your list and your goals and all of this, I would surmise and submit that, what I'm saying, you turn all of those things over to God. Make that list, make those goals and everything else, and then, transform it into your prayer, what I'm saying, and make it a prayer of request from God and say, listen, God, these are the things that I desire, what I'm saying. but I would like you to give me, the things that I truly need, what I'm saying? And be patient because again, God's time is perfect and ours is perfectly flawed. Our timing is perfectly flawed. And again, that's a throwback to some of the words of encouragement I posted on the 2x2 studies group. So I encourage you guys to go back and check those out for this past week. I think you'll get some deeper insight into today's message.
Well, I'll leave everyone as we're past two with an example. And when I come to church, right? I am a uh, what am I? I'm a spectator, right? I think that's fair to say. I'm a spectator in church. And so when you left and you were gone for the month and you're like, hey, can you manage the service and just make sure that everything goes smooth? Well, I don't pay attention to how the service goes, right? I've sat through it my entire life, right? I know how it starts, Old Testament, New Testament, da 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 da. But now when you have to do it, it's like, what order does it go in? What's supposed to happen? What's said there? How does this go? Like, I got no idea, right? I'm brand new all of a sudden because those things, you're just experiencing it, right? And you know what it looks like, and when it's happening, you're in it. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then when no one's there, it's like, okay, you do it. It's like, oh man, all right. So I could have rested on my laurels, right? Trying to recreate it from memory, or I could get right with God, right? I could prepare, I can use it as a verb. So what am I going to do? Well, what did I do last time? I found myself in a position where I had to get something done and I didn't really have someone to necessarily bounce it off of or what I was going to do, right? For my own retention. You could tell me what order it's in, but I still have to retain it. That's my work. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to make a church program. One, we don't have one, but two, that's going to keep it ordered for me, which is my best way, right? Because I still don't remember it. If you pay attention, I'll have that little piece of paper with me the whole time, right? Because it keeps me on track and it keeps me in order, right? This is the Bible verse because I don't pick the verses, right? So I'm not going to memorize what that verse is, nor am I going to try. My memory is starting to fade now as I get older. So I need it written down. But now I can go, hey, the Old Testament is yada, yada, yada. This person's going to come up. It doesn't matter who reads it, right? The New Testament. All right, now we're going to have someone come up for prayer. So that is me getting right, right? That's me taking action over the situation. Not saying, hey, well, you know what? I'll just keep trying to remember it. And man, last Saturday I'd have forgot that again, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's like, no, I got to write this down. And if I'm gonna write it down, then maybe other people might benefit from this too. So not only am I going to get help from it, but other people might get help from it, and there's benefit added. So that's an example of how I had a situation and I needed to overcome it and get better at it, right? Because I want it to be a good product, right? You want it to be, you don't want there to be distractions when people are trying to get into their relationship with God when they're coming to church. So I don't want to be the reason for that. And that's a lot of responsibility. So it's like, I'm going to do this because this is going to help me to present a better product that folks aren't distracted by, I don't know what's going on and what's next and who does, what. And it's also helped because now there's more announcements, right? I'm able to port things over and say, hey, this is going on, blood pressure, this and that, whatever. So that's been very helpful. I just wanted to kind of give folks an example.
Yeah, and I definitely plan on keeping that as an addition to the service. I really like that you did that. Yeah, I enjoy it. So
well, I'm gonna need some help because the middle pages are printing upside down. So
I got you, bro.
But what's great about that is like the announcements, like those can come out on the internet now, right? Because they're already linked. So
yeah,
just copy and paste, like, hey, here's the announcements, folks have it, here's the Bible verse, and it's already pre-done before the service. So there's a lot of benefits from that. But what I needed to do was my attitude versus my ability. I did not have the ability to remember, so my attitude had to be positive. And how am I going to solve this problem so that I can do what I need to do? My needs versus my wants, right? I would love to have just memorized it because, I got so many things going on. If I could just do it off the top of the cuff, that'd be great, but I can't. So what I need to do is I need to write it down and in a way where I can understand it, right? And so for me, that meant I had to set some goals. I needed to make a list. And my journaling was creating that program, right? Which has changed every week because it gets better every week, right? And then check in on it. Okay, I wasn't able to do this last week. This was wrong. The first lady and I were comparing the last week's bulletin to this week's bulletin. It was like, all right, I did this wrong, but this time I got this one right. Oh, this is what I need to do, right? That's the checking in. And so those are the steps that you go through. I just want to show someone the tangible steps of what that actually looks like in practice.
Amen.
Let me
Amen.
go ahead and give you the final word, Rad. This was a good episode.
It was virtually. My final word is this. I'm going to go back to "Oh Ye a Little Faith." We have to do our part, but don't confuse your part with God's part. Stay out of His way. Stay in your lane. Let God do His part, and you do your part. And if you don't know the difference between your part and God's part, I would say maybe you need to start coming to church. No, but yeah, Bible or hey, Bible study. Anyway, yeah, get a little bit closer with God. Do your part, let Him do His part. And yeah, it's be humble and don't resist the process. Yeah. So all of that good stuff.
The last thing I would say too, it's for those that participate in the AA or NA, and sometimes you need more than one meeting. I like to think of church that way also. My dad would say, church is a hospital for sinners. And so that helped me to understand, because I was critiquing the church back when he was still alive. And what it was saying was, we're all going to fall short of the glory of God. And so you have to cultivate that connection. Go ahead.
You know what? I got to update that.
Go ahead.
Church is not a hospital for sinners. The church is a mental ward for the insane. It's not getting this right.
Wow.
Because I didn't grow up in a church, and I know I was crazy before I started coming to church. And what I'm saying is the therapy, what I'm saying, works as long as you keep working it. So it's a mental ward for the insane.
Well, and to that point, I think it's really a huge resource to have New Horizons have their service on Saturday. And so if you were really struggling and going through something, either secularly or spiritually, right? You can come to church on Saturday, you can come to Bible study at 10, you can come to service at 11, you could do the no cap recap after the service. But then most traditional services are on Sunday. So you can engage in that service, right? You can go to another church and get fed there, right? And staying connected to that is important, because some of us need more of it. Think about the things that we do every day. You're scrolling in that phone every day on TikTok or on Facebook or YouTube, right? That you tune into every day, but we don't tune into God every day. We don't tune into the resources that will help us every day. So
Come on,
if you
preach,
start
Rev.
doing that, whether it's your TV show or the movie that you like, the video game that you won't miss, right? You're going to play that every single day. Give a little bit of time to God. Give a little bit of time to the Bible on a daily basis, because it's going to just sustain you, right? Once a week isn't going to sustain you, because as soon as that crisis comes, your attitude is there. You're mad, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're sad, you're depressed, you're lost, you're confused. But when you're staying steady, when I say my mind's staying on Jesus, when your mind is staying on Jesus and in the word, then it helps to keep you focused. It keeps your mindset like, hey, through faith and hope and love, I know that I'm going to get through. God is going to carry me, right? And that's my final word.
All right, Rev. Amen. Preach it, brother. Preach it. Yes. I couldn't have said it better. Yes. That's 100. I'm drop the mic and yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
And what I love about it is, you'll say, Lord, use me, let it be your words, not mine. Like, none of this is scripted, right? I don't even know what the Rev is going to preach until he gives me the verse. And then I don't hear the sermon until he preaches it. So all of my thoughts are based on what I experienced, right? So just know that, God is powerful. That book is powerful, however you decide to use that resource. And with that, the Rev will be back in town next week Lord willing, as he says. And so
Amen.
you will see
Yes.
us in person. So look forward to having you back in at church in person there, Rev.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I look forward to it as well. Yeah. And with that being said, as always, I'll sign off with, may God bless you as you bless his holy name. And may you always, always, always be encouraged in our Lord and our Savior, Jesus the Christ.